Hey, it's Billy Corgan.
This record is beautiful. I want to say the first time I heard it, which was, what now, a week or two ago, I didn't totally understand how to grasp it. And the more I listen to it and the layers just peel off of it, the more I've fallen in love with this thing. And I guess the thing to bring up at the beginning is just how bare it is and sparse. Like, where does that come from?
You'd have to ask Rick on that one. I mean, my proclivity is to tend to gussy everything up. I guess to, I don't know, bury my voice in a sea of notes or something. I don't know, but yeah. I mean, I like it, but I don't know if I would have made those decisions on my own. I'm glad because I do really like it, and sometimes maybe it takes an outside opinion to get you somewhere new.
Does it feel? Does it feel like naked compared to your usual style?
No. I think in a weird way, I think it seems to be more commensurate to the way I write and how I hear the music when I'm working on it. So it doesn't feel like demo or something or too stripped down. It feels like more how the music is when I write it. And then later it's I don't know, it's the movie equivalent of like, I feel like it's like showing everyone your film script as opposed to like the finished movie. But I also realize that a lot of music that I listen to in my personal life has the same degree of space in it. So I'm attracted to space as a listener, an auteur. I think I'm always trying to get too many ideas in maybe. And so that's why it feels a little bit sort of sparse to me, but I don't mind it.
Were the demos too different? Because it's not that they, as you're saying, they don't sound like demos, but I can't imagine the demos were too different than this.
The demos just didn't have any overdubs. So it would just, basically be how I'm performing live, just, whatever is the instrument choice and the voice.
Are these all new songs, or some of these have been floating around for a while?
Only The Spaniards was a leftover from the last Smashing Pumpkins sessions.
Oh, okay.
Everything else was written after I sort of threw that record away.
Oh, I'm listening to some of these songs. I mean, obviously, you can tell some of them, or I'm assuming, I can't tell. I'm assuming a lot of them are newer just because of, you do bring up, I guess, fatherhood type of things in this. Does fatherhood factor into the record as a whole as much as I think it sounds like it does? I
don't feel like it does, but sometimes I don't notice those things until many years later. So, sometimes I'll listen to records from the 90s and it's like so obvious what I was singing about that at the time I didn't think about it at all. So I don't know how that works unconsciously, but I definitely have had that experience.
I mean, that's just one of those, well, one, it's a critic thing and an interviewer thing and a fan thing. You hear one little bit of information about an artist and you kind of grab onto it, and that's how you go into the record with that in your mind.
Well, it's normal. I mean, I don't mind it, you know what I mean? Because I feel as clueless as most people, I've learned to stop trying to intellectualize my work. I think maybe I made that mistake, wanting people to appreciate it. I think oftentimes they over-explain it and kind of put in ghosts where they didn't belong,
I know I got that a little bit from Aeronaut. Another thing I got from that song, I don't know if this is intentional or not, there's one note in there that sounds, it's the beginning of Imagine. It even sounds like the same piano, the John Lennon song. Have you noticed that?
No idea.
Yes, it's where you hammer on it every time I hear it. It's a beautiful moment for me. It's a nice relation, again, placing things where they don't belong. But regardless, another one of those songs, Processional, I know it's getting a lot of attention, one, because it has James Iha on it, and a lot of fans are just kind of clamoring for that one. There's a line in it I was wondering, and maybe you sort of answer it by saying what you just did, but when you say it's a long way to get back home, does that mean anything in relation to the Pumpkins and all of that?
No, none at all. I mean, I don't mind. People can interpret whatever, but no, I mean, in terms of direct thought, no. Zero. There's very little about the band on this record, and maybe that's a good thing. I feel like I've made those records, and I don't know, I feel like I've sort of moved on from the subject, which is kind of weird because obviously there's a lot of speculation about the band playing again, but in my day-to-day personal life, I actually think about the band very little.
And I don't want to rehash it either. I'm not the type that wants to take it there and talk about all that, but when you have that moment, because there have been a lot of, speculation, teases or whatever, and tease is probably the wrong word because I don't think you're putting it out there, and there you have, one of your former guitarists on it. It's almost impossible not to bring that up a little bit. I don't know. Is it worth asking about that lyric again then specifically? Is there anything of interest behind that? What is home? What does that line mean to you?
Well, I think I'm talking about the mythical home, where you feel, like a musician, you feel like you resolve. And a lot of life feels unresolved. I mean, people die, things happen that you can't anticipate. I mean, here we are living in a world where terrorism is a constant existential and literal threat. Every time you go to a big event, you have to kind of wonder in the back of your mind, is this a fated, thing? It's just sad that we have to even think about those things, So home to me is really it's like a mythological idea that, you reach a place of sort of inner serenity, that wherever you feel home is, you're there.
Do you find yourself being optimistic or pessimistic about the direction we're headed with all of that, especially, being an artist who has to deal with that kind of worry about your audience as we're seeing more and more?
I don't mean to be glib, but, I think there's a lot of things in the world that can only exist because on some sort of deep level we accept it existing. I'm talking the collective we, that on some level we all bear responsibility for the ills of the world. And that's a bit of a Buddhist way to approach it, but I feel like the world will become a better place when the world decides it wants to be a better place. That as an individual, you can do a lot of things to improve the condition of the world. But in terms of the big stuff, it's a collective decision. One individual cannot stop madness. It's just the way it is, and that's a very that's a multi-thousand-year problem.
Sure.
That just didn't start recently. One only needs to read Roman history to understand that at one point on this planet people lived with that as a constant. That the idea that there was that no situation existed without threat. And we're into a lot of uncharted territory. We're into how we socially interact, the world of digital privacy, government spying on people. It gets into all sorts of crazy dystopian and Orwellian concepts that are essentially sort of fresh. If the utopian ideal is to paraphrase John Lennon, live in peace, we seem to have a ways to go, and I don't think anybody has the perfect solution. So we're just kind of stumbling and fumbling our way forwards. And I think most people have common goals, which is they'd like to live in peace. They'd like to be who they want to be. They'd like to love who they want to love without restriction, and raise their families in an environment that is progressive and ultimately will give their children a better opportunity than they had. I think that's 90+% of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those are not novel concepts. So it's a shame that we don't have greater global agreement on those concepts, because it's important. There's no getting around it. To me, those are the core tenets of life.
I will bring it back to the music here, because I want to ask about the companion film. What do you call Pillbox in relation to this record?
That's not a bad way to put it. We just decided to make a film as opposed to doing a music video, and it was a novel approach to market the record. So we just took it as a different opportunity. Instead of trying to make a film that went with the album, we just made a film and hoped it went with the album, and it sort of does, and it sort of doesn't. But people seem to like it.
And you've always been working with multimedia in your entire career. I was kind of curious, though, as you get older and people have many things going on in their lives, along with, stuff like Pillbox, but with the wrestling and the tea shop, I'd kind of wondered, do you still see music as your main focus, or is it just one part of you at this, at this part of your life?
Oh, no, it's very much my main focus. In fact, I found that even though it seems a little counterintuitive on paper, I found that by having other interests, it actually made me more interested in music. It made me miss music, and it made me appreciate music more when I was in it. Where at one point in my life, music was all that I did. It felt like a millstone around my neck. It felt like oppressive in a way that, like, I'd created my own, prison, or to paraphrase the Rat in the Cage lyric, I'd created my own cage. And people, of course, would very rightly say, well, why don't you do something else, like garden or take a vacation? And it seemed antithetical to the thing that I built, which was this massive machine that, only worked if I kept throwing more songs into it. So by learning how to have a life outside of music, including having a family, I found my interest in music grew again, and my dedication to music is quite equal to what it once was. And I think it's sort of the classic thing of I've learned how to economically use my time and my efforts better, so I get just as much out of that commitment as I used to when it was like the oppressive cloud thing.
You mentioned that the big machine that you had to keep feeding and everything, and now I look at this current tour and you're the only person on stage, right? It's just you.
I think so. It feels lonely up there.
That was going to be my question. Again, I'm going to use that, asking, does it feel naked, as I asked earlier about the music. That's got to be so different than just being so used to having that huge thundering sound that you're known for behind you, and now it's just so little.
Well, I do like it does at times feel a bit sparse, but I do like the spontaneity. I mean, for anybody who saw the Pumpkins back in the 90s, you know, a lot of what the band did was improvisational and sort of made up on the spot. And it could only work that way because we played constantly and we sort of had designed it that way. When I returned to the band in, 2007-ish, and it became sort of more formulaic as far as what audiences expected and the set list, and there was less improvisation and less soloing and less fun in quotations, I find playing as a solo artist puts me back in that location where I can interpret the music however I feel at any given moment. And so I quite enjoy it. It really takes me back more to the way I used to play.
And so you're playing this record and then you do some of the old songs. Are you playing stuff from your first solo record?
I think one song. Yeah. Unfortunately, of all the albums I've put out, that album translates I don't want to say the worst, but it's the hardest one to translate into the acoustic realm because it's so production focused, and there's a lot of dissonant chord work that doesn't translate too well to a unskilled piano player and the tunings of a guitar. So I found it's been difficult to play some of those songs acoustically.
Yeah. Do you still have a relationship with that record?
Yeah, I guess it comes and goes depending on the year. I'm looking forward to, I made interesting deals starting when the band broke up and I was a free agent in 2001. Every deal I've made since then, I own all my masters. And so there's a lot of things I want to recontextualize and remix and stuff. So I'm looking forward to going back to that record at some point and kind of recontextualizing it because there's other materials that were generated that weren't finished or mixed or whatever. So yeah, I see that record as kind of like a very intensive sort of art project that by and large is sort of misunderstood and not fully, I don't want to say appreciated because that sounds sort of wrong. I don't mean it like I'm mad about it. I mean it as like, I don't think people really understand the record in the context I meant it in. It seemed to get caught up in the, it doesn't sound like Smashing Pumpkins, so therefore I don't understand it thing. And lately I've really noticed the record's been talked about a lot more. And I do think it has something to do with the fact that that production is actually kind of more of what the type of production people listen to now is actually that production. So in a weird kind of way, this record actually sounds contemporary now, where at the time in 2004 or 5, people just didn't know what to think of the record.
Ahead of your time.
Or behind, depending on how you look at it.
I enjoy all of it, and I appreciate this new record. Like I said, it is a beautiful little testament here, and I thank you for giving me the call today and talking about it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. It was a pleasure. We'll see you around.
Okay, thank you, brother. Bye.
All right, bye.